Okay, the next task is to activate this particular functionality so that a user can send a message, and we'll head back to VS Code and start work on this. So what we'll need to do first of all, we'll go to our service and we need to go to our message service, and we're going to add a new method to go and send a message. So we'll call it send message, and what we need for this is the username of who we're sending the message to, which is going to be a string, and the content, which is also going to be a string. And we'll return, and we'll say this.http.post, and we know we're going to get a message DTO back from this. So what we'll do is we'll pass in message as what we're getting, and then we'll say this.base URL plus, and then we'll say messages, and then what we want to do in here is pass up the content. Now I'm not going to create a type for this, I'm just going to use an object because we're going to send this inside an object. And then I'm going to specify the name of the parameters, or the key in this case, and this is going to match what we're looking for in our create message DTO. It has to match exactly. So I'm going to say recipient username, and we'll set this to username, and then we're going to pass up the content. And when we create an object in this way, then if the name of the parameter or the name of the property is exactly the same as what we're passing in, then we don't need to specify content is content, for instance. We can just leave it as content. But when it's different, like it is in this case, we've used recipient username, then we're going to set that to the username, and we do need to add the value of the key in this case. So then what we can do is we can head over to our member messages component, and we're going to create a method inside here to actually send a message. So even though we removed it earlier, that was a bit premature because we're going to need to add it back in again now. So we'll add in the member service and call it members service, and we'll create a method inside here, and we're going to call this just send message, and inside here we're going to say list.message service, and I needed to bring in message service, not member service, and update this to message service, and we'll say this.message service, and we'll say send message, and we need access to the username, which we also removed from this as well. So what we need to do is actually put this back in here because we need this. So we're going to add the input, and we're going to say username, and that's a type of string, and we're going to get this from our member detail component. So we'll head up there and go to the member detail component HTML, and for our member messages component we need to add the username property back in there, and we're going to set this equal to member.username, and then we can head back to our member messages components, and we have our username, and what we also want is this .message content, which we'll add to our properties, and we'll say content, message content is a type of string, and we'll add the other parameter as this.message content, and then we can subscribe, and we know that we get the message back from this, so we'll say message, and inside here we'll say this.messages .push, and we'll push the new message that we've created inside here so that we can see it in the array of messages. And then what we need to do is go to our member message component template. So we'll open this, we'll say member message component HTML, and if we scroll down, then what we've got here is a form. And what we'll do is we'll just use a template form for this because this is going to be the simplest form you can possibly imagine. And we'll give it a name of message form, and we'll set this to ng form, and we'll add an ng submit, and we'll set this equal to the new send message that we've created. And because it's annoying, we'll turn it off, and we'll turn off autocomplete and set this to off. And what we need to do is work on our input component here. So let's just tidy things up. And inside our inputs, we'll give it a name equal to message content, the same name that we added as the parameter or the property inside our component. We'll say that this is required, and we've not looked at template form validation, but template forms respect the required property that we can put inside an input. Then we'll add an ng model because we want two-way binding for this. And we're just going to, again, set this to message content. And then what we can do is we can check to see if the form is valid, and if it is, as in they've got something inside the message content, then we'll set this to disabled, and we'll check the status of the message form and see if it's valid, and if it isn't, then we're turning off that functionality. Now what we'll also need to do, because once they've sent a message and it's been successful, then we'll want to reset the form so that we clear the content inside there. And to do that, we're going to need to go to our message component and use the viewChild to get access to the message form from our component. So what we'll do is we'll say @viewChild, and we'll say message form, and we'll say message, we'll just call it message form, and it's going to be a type of ng form. And then what we can do is come down to our send message method, and after we send a message, we're going to say this.message form, and we're just going to reset and just add empty parameters there. So we just clear the content inside the form. And now we have this in place, we can go test. So I'm just going to refresh this page because during testing, I had a weird error that was immediately resolved as soon as the browser was refreshed. And let's just type in a message and say, hello, Lisa, because I'm currently logged in as Todd and I'm sending a message to Lisa. And if I press return, then we see the message pop inside there from Todd. And that's the result we're looking for. And let's just check other users, and let's pick on a different user, and let's go to Lewis. And let's say hello Lewis and press return. And now we see the message inside there, and the message should be persisting as well, and we should see it pop in once the message has been received. So we've got our messages, which is good, but there's something that we need to clean up inside here, because if I switch from well, first of all, we're starting off on our outbox, and we want to start off on our unread messages. Secondly, when we switch between the inbox and the outbox, then we see that switch of the photos, because the photo takes longer to load than the data, because the photo has to be retrieved. And when we switch between these, then we've got an issue. So a couple of things to clear up: where we start off from, the outbox. We don't want to start in the outbox. And we also want to take a look at what we can do to resolve that issue as well. And we'll take a look at that next.